You know, I'm right. The podcast that uncovers the origin stories of some of the biggest names in sports, media, and entertainment. Joe, really excited for our guest today, someone we know personally a little bit. He is a comedian, he's a past reality star, and he's got some more stuff in common with us than most would think. So, why don't you let everybody know who our guest is here today? And this is Nick Durst, of course, with Joe Calabrese on You Know I'm Right. And we're very excited for our guest.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like everybody works for a sports betting or a sports gambling company these days, right? So, Nick and I do. He does as well. I'm not entirely sure if I'm able to promote that. So we'll let him decide that. But yes, got to meet him in person a couple of weeks ago. Really, really outstandingly nice guy, funny. We'll get to talk about that during the episode. But let me introduce him, John Franklin. John, welcome to the show. Sorry to keep you waiting. I'll mention that. How are you today?
What's up, fellas? I'm doing great. Another day above ground. That's what I always say. So I'm living the dream. Everything's good. Yeah, we'll get into the whole gambling content side of things every now and again. But yeah, I was on a reality show. I'm a comedian. I tend to do a bunch of different stuff. So I'm stoked to be here, stoked to talk about it. And hopefully we'll find out why I'm right at some point over the course of this episode. But we'll figure it out.
So, with the sports stuff, you could say your life has come full circle, we could say. So, a little pun
All
intended
right, so
there.
I gotta go. I gotta leave. This has been a great interview. Thank you guys.
He's
No,
out of
yeah,
here.
absolutely true. Yeah, everything's coming around. To think of like where I was like 2 years ago leaving college to where I am now is like I couldn't ever predicted it, but it is insane to like it's such a blessing. It's so crazy. It's so cool.
Take us back to like 20 years or 15, 16 years ago. What was your childhood like? Were you very into sports? Were you playing anything? What were your favorite teams?
Sure. Yeah. Well, grew up in northern New Jersey in a town called Caldwell, New Jersey. Huge football fan my whole life. Been a Giants fan my whole life. First team I ever really like, I would say I loved. Yankees are right there. Like that was a 1 and 2. And also a very big Devils fan. So we're on heater right now. If you guys aren't riding the Devils right now, you should be. But yeah, grew up in New Jersey. My dad was a huge sports fan and really rubbed off on me. But the interesting part is my dad's a Mets fan and I'm a Yankee fan. And that's because my mom only loves one team. And she was like, you could make him a Giants fan, do whatever you want, but he will be a Yankees fan because I care about the Yankees. So I got the nice little split there. I grew up playing soccer, baseball, golf, all of it. Any like little club sport I would. So I've been obsessed with sports my whole life, dude. Always wanted to work in it. Always wanted to be like an announcer or a sports media personality. And lucky enough with everything going on, I'm lucky to do that now. And so thinking about it as a kid, that's where I wanted to be and what I wanted to be doing. It is just so cool to actually get to do it now.
Yeah, it seems like what everybody wanted to do here that works in sports. I wanted to do it. Nick wanted to do it. Nick still wants to do it. And to be fair, he's actually very good at it. So,
There you
but
go.
you have a couple of things in common with my friends, but this one in particular, you went to Quinnipiac, right? A couple of Bobcats, uh, competitive school. I always say this because I went to Marist. It's like, even though not quite in the same conference, uh, similar strengths in each school, right? A lot of people who go to Marist go to Quinnipiac for kind of the same reasons, right? So you went
Good
to
hockey
Quinnipiac,
school, right?
great
Yeah,
hockey
huge hockey
school now,
school. And
and it
also
wasn't, yeah, it
we are
wasn't like
both in
that
the
20 years ago.
no, but we are both in the MAC, right? We're all Metro
Did they?
Atlantic Athletic
Oh,
Conference.
they
Yeah.
switched. I thought Quinnipiac. Oh, you know why I'm thinking that? Because I think Quinnipiac and basketball, where were they in the Northeast Conference for a while?
They used to, yeah,
They
back in
used
the
to be.
day.
There you go.
Well, when I was there, they still are the MAAC, the MAC, the same thing as the Marist. So, but
Max.
Okay.
yeah, well, Maction, like not the Maction everybody knows and loves for football, but a different kind of Maction. No, dude, I loved Quinnipiac. Best 4 years ever. I'm not one of those people who like I miss college. I wish I could go back. I think college was like the perfect 4 years. It ended right. Like I had a great time and it really did like some of my best friends in my life, but it really set me up for success to where I ended up wanting to be. I mean, besides the whole reality TV thing, I think even just in a professional standpoint, really did put me in a good spot. And I did my first ever hour stand-up set at Quinnipiac University after The Circle came out. So that was like a really cool, again, full circle moment. So that was awesome.
It's so funny because the Marist College newspaper is called The Circle.
Oh, is it
Little
really?
little factoid, yeah.
Joe, one of the
There
best
you
to
go.
ever write for the circle.
Wow.
Yes,
I'm
yeah,
I'm sitting in the I'm in the presence of a legend.
yeah. I used to write for basketball, men and women's soccer, baseball. I wrote a couple times. I used to cover like the club hockey team. Yeah, so I did like I bounced around and got to see a couple of different athletic teams while I was there. So that's what I did, and it eventually led to a couple of internships, right? So the whole process to do internships, it's difficult. So how was that like, and what was it like looking and ultimately eventually getting that first job out of college?
Oh boy. So I interned at iHeartMedia throughout college. I had gotten the internship when I was going into my junior year of college. And it was just one of those things because of like the way the internship was structured. I could just keep doing that same internship over and over and over again, like throughout the school year and throughout the summers. So that was like my lone internship throughout college. Loved it, had a lot of fun. Um, Worked sort of in sports. I helped like get their high school sports coverage like nationwide off the ground, like on a social media side of things. So that was pretty cool. Um, and then I just worked for our athletic department, really just trying to run social media accounts, do different things like that. But the like first job out of college had nothing to do with sports. I ran social media for a college called Wentworth Institute of Technology. And it was very strange because I was just out of college, so most students thought I was a student and didn't really understand that I was ever gonna like be covering doing anything professionally. They thought I was like genuinely just like a student running around campus, things like that. It was a good job. I really enjoyed it, but it wasn't what I like was passionate or loved to do. Then the pandemic happened like 3 months after I started that job because as we all know, working in sports and media, you don't get a job right out of college. You never do. It takes like 6 or 7 months. And so like
Maybe
my
six or
first job
seven
there,
years for some people.
yeah, it could be 6 or 7 years. Yeah. Like that's the thing. I get this job January 2020 when I started, March 2020, pandemic hits, moved back home to New Jersey, and I had to kind of figure it all out. And that's when that December, I was in the middle of applying for the job with BetMGM, and I threw in an application to go on the circle because I was like, I don't know what the world's going to be like at all. So I'm going to apply for a job and apply for the only reality show that I think I could be good at and see which one happens first. And I was lucky enough to get both. So that was crazy. But yeah, I'm glad that BetMGM honestly was cool about me going and let me come back and maintain my career.
So, did you want to pursue comedy at all prior to going to do the reality TV? Did you do any comedy beforehand? When did you decide, let me try this comedy thing?
I started doing stand up. I consider like the pandemic when I started doing stand up because I was doing open mics over Zoom. That
Hmm.
was just like how I started. It was kind of like a thing. I was like, I think I could be good at stand up. I think it could be just a good hobby, for lack of a better term. And I was like honestly grinding on open mics multiple times a day because they were so accessible. It was Zoom. And so many comedians were not doing them because they were like, this isn't the comedy I know and love and like how I grew up doing it and how I like made it in the industry, which I get. But it opened up an opportunity for me by May of 2021 when things started opening up in the city. A lot of people who were doing Zoom shows, not open mics, like actual shows in the city, as opposed to reaching out to like the people they had become so accustomed to doing shows with. I was getting calls, texts, come to this show at this comedy club in the city. And I remember the first show I went to do in the city, I showed up being like, this is it, my first comedy club. Like you're like getting all jacked up because you're like, I've never done this yet. I've been doing a year on Zoom. And I remember going and I did all right. I didn't do anything in particularly great. And I remember leaving being like, well, that wasn't as exciting as I thought it would be. Cause it's like a dingy New York City basement. And then like you just get the itch and you keep going and going and going. So when I left to do the show, I was about 7 months into live comedy. So almost 2 years into doing like comedy as a whole, but I wasn't even really a year in. And that was brutal because I was getting consistent work in the city. And then I left and nobody knew where I went. I couldn't tell anybody. I only told one friend, like one comedian friend, that where I was going and what I was doing. And it's like you die in comedy. Seriously, like I think it's like Chappelle said something like, once you start doing it, you can't stop. And it's like and it's not because of the itch. It's because if you stop, getting back in is the hardest thing of your life. So from that point on, I was having a bitch of a time trying to get back into the comedy scene. Then the show came out and everybody was like, oh, come on back. Like, oh, he has a Netflix credit. Like, he's cool. We'll bring him back in. So it was worth it for the gamble, but that like purgatory of never getting work on the in-between felt terrible.
What was the audition process like for the show?
It was crazy. It was like 7 or 8 auditions, 7 or 8. The first one was just like a phone call. Hey, we liked your application. Like, would you want to do it? And I just applied on the general casting site. So I don't know if you guys have ever tried or gone through any of this, but you do that. Like, you don't
trying to get Joe to go on Big Brother, but he's
that would be awesome. I love Big Brother. That would be fun. You should try.
You should try too, John. You guys should make believe you don't know each other. You come in, play together, and just
then we have.
I was going to suggest that. Yeah, absolutely.
That would be great. I love it. I love this idea.
We've had a couple of Big Brother house guests, former house guests with on, and a lot of them were recently, like the last 2 seasons, right? And
cool.
For some reason, Big Brother, I guess it's just a part of the casting process. They love casting people from Staten Island. They do, right?
Yeah,
There's a little bit of a bias there. Like Staten Island's kind of like the forgotten borough, and when you think about like Brooklyn, Queens,
funny,
right?
They're funny people,
right?
Yeah,
good TV.
So I have reconsidered this in the past couple of like the last 7 to 10 days. I would be open to it. I'm right.
And John could tell you, Joe, it'll do wonders for your career, for the podcast.
It's true.
And you're from Caldwell, so it's like it's enough of a distance where it's like we could get away with one New York guy, one Jersey guy, you know? So
exactly. And they would never expect us to be a duo because I think people inherently think we're rivals by where we're from. Like North Jersey and Staten Island, I feel like people just think are just like headbutters, but I think we can make a great alliance.
You guys live near each other now, right? I mean, Joe's in
Jersey
City, and I'm in Hoboken. Look at that.
So that's another rivalry, though.
No, actually, Jersey City, Hoboken, I think we get along. I think we're all right. We're cool. But the audition process, though, yes, you should do it because like I just applied to a general casting link, dude. You should do it because like I just got a call and they're like, hey, we liked your application. Do you want to audition? I'm like, fuck it. Like, yeah, sure. Let's do it. And I go to this first audition and like, you're doing like the whole, like you're dialing up, right? You're like, what's up guys? I'm John. I'm from New Jersey. And like, this is how I would play the game. And the next audition, they call me and they're like, all right, you're up. Let's do it. And like, it's a Zoom like this. And I'm doing the same thing. And I'm like, and I would play myself. And they're like, stop. Why? And they're like, we have too many people auditioning to play themselves. We think you'd be really good at catfishing. Can you catfish? And I was like, I really don't know if I can. They're like, we think you'd be good at it. If you could catfish, who would you catfish as? And I just like kind of panicked and went, I'd be my mom. Like, just like that. And they were like, go on, continue. And I was like, me and my mom are really close. Like, we're from an Italian family and I'm doing like the whole thing all over again. And they're like, okay, this is great. We need 15 pictures of your mom to make like a fake profile so you could like fake play the game and like set up the profile for like your next couple auditions. I'm like, fuck. Because my mom has no social media. She has none. Like no pictures posted anywhere, nothing like that. So I'm like, all right, how do I do this? So I called my mom and I don't know how this worked, but I was like, Mom, I need you to take 15 pictures with Dad, no questions asked. And she was like, you got it. And just like that day, 15 pictures come into my phone. Like just my dad took them and like none of them made it really into the show besides one. And it's my favorite thing ever because in the photo, you could tell like it's just staged around the house. She's wearing the same outfit the whole time. And there's this one photo of her cooking and she's holding like a pot like this, but the flame is off and there's nothing in the pot. And she's got a wooden spoon. And it made it in the final cut of a Netflix show. Like when they like bring me in, I'm like, this is awesome. I'm so glad this picture made it in. But yeah, like by the last audition, they were just like, all right, you got to fake play the game a couple times. So you mock play the game with the producers. And they're like, we'll call you and let you know how it goes. The last week of August, I got a call. They were like, you're going to go do the show in England. I'm like, wow. Okay. Yeah, I was like, okay, cool. When? They're like, next week. So I had to tell my boss like that day, be like, next week I'm going to leave for a month and you won't be able to contact me.
Did you tell your boss like you were going on a show or you were like, how'd that work? Because you just started the job pretty recently.
Yeah, I did. And I told him, I was like, listen, here's the situation. And I kind of laid it all out. And I was like, look, it's a month. I'll be gone and I'll be back and I'll work. Like I'll work. I'm good. Like if you guys tell me I can't go, I'm probably still like I'll get fired if I go. I'm probably still gonna go do it because it's just like I'm 24 at the time, like once in a lifetime chance. And he was like, well, I think because of what you do at this point, I had already done a few on camera things for them that like, as long as it was cleared by legal, they were like, I don't think we could actually fire you for that because it would be like anybody taking a month-long vacation effectively because we have unlimited PTO. That's a little plug for BetMGM.
That worked out in their favor.
Yeah, lawyered, man, lawyered. You gotta read all those books, you know. But yeah, it worked out, and they were totally cool with it. And ever since, like, I mean, my life has been drastically different, but it's been super cool.
Awesome. So, what was the experience like filming the show? And you came away with little love connections, so kind of worked out.
I did. The filming of the show was so interesting. Because you get there, they don't tell you that you're not guaranteed to go on the show. Like when you get there, you film your promo, and they're like, and that's when they make the decision who's going in. There were 30 people that were sent out to England, and only 12 of us made it on the show. And I didn't know that was the case until after. And I was one of the first four people in, as well as my girlfriend Alyssa was one of the first 4 people in too. But like when I went in, I was like, this are great, cool. I just like, I guess because they think my story's interesting or whatever. You never know, dude. Like you don't know what's going on behind the scenes. So that was crazy. Didn't know that was the case. Got in the show, and I remember the day of, you don't like the whole time leading up. Anybody who's ever played a sport, you've done theater, you've been on stage for anything, been in front of a camera. This is like, you're not nervous. You're like, I've done this before. I'm not nervous. This is fine. Like I've competed in things. I've done all this. And then you realize like right before, at least for me, right before you're going in, there's a producer holding like your shoulder like this. You have one of your 2 bags that you packed everything. And they're like, all right, you're going in and this is it. And you realize right there, nobody else is in that room besides you. So it's not like you have a co-host or anything like that. It's like, you're the movie star and you got to figure out how to be entertaining. So I walked into my room and I'm like, oh, wow. TV. Like, I'm like not doing well. I'm like, stop. Like the producer's voice comes in my room and like, dude, you got to try to be a little more excited. I'm like, I'm sorry. I've never done anything like this before. Like, it's okay. We're going to let you try again. But once we let you into the room, like, this is it. Like, we're not going to let you do it again. I'm like, okay. So I go back out, and like the day before I left, my best friend, who's a huge reality TV fan, was like, you got to say something ridiculous when you walk in so it makes it on air. Like, so like you catch like the producers. I'm like, okay. And he gave me this line to say, and I was like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. But in the panic of everything going on with the show, it was the first thing I thought of. So I swung open the door, and the first thing I think of is my friend Luke saying this line, and I just yell, I go, Daddy needs a new pair of slacks. And I just walked into my room, and I'm like, this is so embarrassing. I'm just hoping it's not going to make it into the show. I'm praying like months later, like when the show came out, I hope this doesn't make it. It didn't. But what ended up making it was my stupid line of going, light me on fire and call me the 4th of July. I'm in the circle. so it all comes around, man. It's a give and a take. But the filming process is nuts. Just like cameras in every corner, just a voice being pumped in. That's your producer. They see everything you do. I started to figure out like what I could and couldn't do on camera so that they could stop filming me. But like it was really filmed like 24/7, cameras in the bathroom, everything. Like it was awful. But the experience was cool, but that part was like crazy.
Oh boy. Light me on fire and call me my birthday.
Yeah. January 6th, baby. That's my birthday.
July 4th. July 4th.
Oh, that's July 4th. Yeah, January 6th has a different light on fire nowadays. But
we'll get into your birthday later on.
Yeah.
I have a good question for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is your girlfriend Italian?
She is. Yes,
she is.
Her last name, sort of like mine, is like kind of like a misnomer. Mine got changed. Hers, just her dad is Czechoslovakian. But majority Italian. His dad was just like Eastern European. But yeah, like very, very Italian families, both of us. So it's a big win.
My great grandmother was from Czech.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. Small world.
So, so Joe, of course, you've been here. I'm known to drop a surprise or two. And this was the part of the podcast where I was supposed to pop Alyssa on the screen. But unfortunately, she's at the dentist right now, so she couldn't make it.
Oh
So
my
that would have
God.
been quite the surprise. And John knows she's at the dentist, so he knows I'm not messing around.
That would have been, I don't even know what we would have gotten into at that point. That would have thrown me for a loop. I'm not going to lie to you guys. That would have been an insane surprise.
Nick loves that stuff.
We've
That
done
would have
it
been
before.
awesome.
So, all right. But yeah, it all worked out. So how did you, get in touch after the show with Alyssa? How did things progress when the show is done?
Yeah, so the show ended filming in October, and her, Yu Ling, and I were like in a group chat separate from everybody else, just because we're all from like the New York area, New York, New Jersey area, and we were just like trying to get together every now and again. And around like March, before the show aired, we had like made plans to go out in the city together, the three of us, and Yu Ling like bailed last minute. And the place that we went to was like super like date vibes. It was like kind of accidental date. And we were just there together and we were like having a really good time. And then I walked her back to Grand Central because she lives in Westchester. And I was like, all right, I'll see you later. And then like on her train ride home, we had a few drinks in us. And on her train ride home, she had like texted me like basically, she's older than me. So she kind of pushed the shot and she was like, what are we doing? And I was like, I don't know. You're older than me. I don't know what I should do. I feel like a child in this situation. So but yeah, it was kind of like, what are we doing? Why don't we try this? And like, by the time the show came out, we were together, but like, we didn't tell anybody because we didn't want that to be like the first thing people found out after the show aired. Cause then it felt like sort of a gimmick. You know what I mean? It was like, we want to just like keep our private lives separate. So by the time it got to like August after the show really died down, that's when we were like, all right, we could kind of tell people that we're dating now. But yeah, it was just kind of like, we had gotten along so well, talked all the time, and it just like made sense. She's probably the first person I've ever dated that I was actually like genuinely friends with before we started dating. So like that was a really good start. But it was just super easy. Like a lot of people think that these things with like reality TV are bogus, and it's fair because that does happen. But because with the nature of our show has nothing to do with dating, I think that's why it's worked out so well, for lack of a better term.
Absolutely. So what was it like for you to watch the show back? And also from the time before the show started till after, how much did your social media presence or following grow?
Oh, geez. Watching the show back was crazy because when you film the show, you're the only one in the show as far as you know. You know what I mean? Like they're only filming you. You're the main character in your room. Like you're just concerned about what you're doing. And you're filming 24 hours a day, 7 days a week until it's over. So you think like there's like a War and Peace movie coming out about you. And then you're 1/12 of the television time when you watch it. So like you're remembering things during the points where they're showing other people that you were doing. And you're like, oh, wow, I was doing this while they're showing this. Like you're putting everything together. And obviously we know the outcome before it even airs. We like the finale and everything happens. So like there's no surprise shocks or twists. What really threw me for a loop was like, I knew people knew that I wasn't my mom and they didn't know who I was. But every now and again, like I would get them to revert back, watching it back, which I thought was cool. But what really threw me for the loop was like people saying they did or didn't like me. Cause it seemed fairly straightforward that like people did like me while we were filming. And then I realized like so much of the production and manipulation of the show was them like kind of putting things in people's ears of what I said, but didn't make sense. I think that was like pretty interesting to me when I was watching it back, but it overall, like I had such a positive reaction from fans, which shows in my social media, and I was just like, I was thrilled with how it turned out with me. My socials, I mean, before I went to do the show, I think I had like 1,200 followers on Instagram and like 2,700 on TikTok. And now I have like 61 and change on Instagram and 58 and change thousand on TikTok. And I like cannot be more honest with you guys about this. I did not know what to do when that happened. I had no plan as a social media guy. Like I mean, as a social media guy, Joe, like you always have like a plan for these things. Like you're like, oh, like if we could plan out this, and this, it'll make our lives a lot easier. When it's your personal, you are throwing paint at a wall like you're Jackson Pollock. Like you have no idea what's going on. And you're like, I can't plan anything around this. So I'm just going to make anything that I possibly can. Some things go well, some things don't. But the one thing that I do, I think better than most people, I would say, I would challenge most people on this too, that are reality TV people, is that I try to make my social media seem as genuinely personal as possible, especially every morning with my story where I'm telling everybody have a great day. Like it's a great day to have a day. Like that's my thing. I like to talk to people, like try to, when people DM me, I answer. Nothing I post is anything that I like. Nothing I post is something that I wouldn't have posted if I didn't have a following. Like if I had a following or not, these are still things that I would put on my social medias, like the sketches that I do, like the reactions that I make. Like it's all what I would have done because like I don't know how to do it otherwise. If I were like, I don't do many brand deals, some by choice, others because of the nature of my social media. And like I don't think people really want like 25-year-old comedian promoting a specific brand unless like I'm really the guy you're targeting. Like I've had like Heineken Double Zero reach out and things like that, but like nothing too crazy. And that's because like I don't want people coming to my socials and seeing like 12 ads. Like I don't want
Right.
people watching what I do and like thinking like, oh, he went, did a show, got the bag, and now he does not care. Because that's not true. I like my life would be drastically different if the 61,000 people and 58,000 people didn't follow me. I wouldn't get the opportunity to film a comedy special, which we'll talk about in a bit. Like I wouldn't get the opportunity to do as much stand up, meet the people that I meet. I would have met probably you guys.
Right.
Like if you really think about it, it's like those are the things that are more valuable than like a $500 check from a brand to make an Instagram story. And like that's what I've always like valued in myself. I don't want to be like somebody who cops out and does things like that.
So you get back from the show, you wait a few months, the following grows large. Those comedy bookers, they're getting back to you. And then from
Yeah.
there, it's kind of just been like, nonstop with you grinding it out, doing comedy, doing some local touring and stuff. So tell us now, like, are you happy with where your career's headed comedy wise? And also tell us about the big show you got coming up in a month to start off the new year with a laugh.
Yeah. Let's do it. So yeah, the career is awesome. I mean, it's still a grind. I mean, it's still work. You don't just like go on one of these shows and then you come back and you're like, now I'm famous. I can do whatever I want. It's like you're not famous. Like you went on a reality show, you have a good following, and like you could leverage it the right way. I've gotten to do some cool shows with some really cool people. I got to meet Mike Marino, who's obviously like a mutual friend of ours, and like he's a legend in stand up. I mean, like you don't. I mean, when he texted me, like he got my number from somebody else and texted me, and I was like, this can't. This is crazy. Like that's the
New
type of stuff where
Jersey's
you're like,
bad boy of comedy.
that's it. New Jersey's bad boy comedy. I mean, like seldom a time in my life that my dad wasn't watching like a YouTube clip of Mike Marino. That's absolutely true. And it's like, it's crazy to think that that's where my life is now. Obviously, it can only get better if I keep working at it the right way. And that being said, like January 7th, as we're talking about it a month out, I'm filming what I hope to be one of many stand-up specials in my career. It's early in my career to be doing one, but at the same time, it's like, when is there going to be a better time? Like a venue, my first theater, I'm having it in New Jersey, filming it an hour. Like it is just crazy to think that that's something that I get to do in my life and like that is an opportunity that I get to have. But yeah, like, I mean, it's going to be the best night of my life so far as comedy goes. And it's only up from here. I really genuinely believe like I write a bunch, like I try to do scripts, things like that. And like things that I've got in the works are a lot is happening behind the scenes and a lot of things that I can and can't talk about, but most of the stuff is really reserved for that first show. And it's like, if that goes well, this could be like the takeoff point. Yeah, come out, support House of Independence, January 7th. Doors open at 7. Asbury Park, New Jersey. It's going to be a lot of fun. We got a band opening up that they're actually my cousins. So it'll be a lot of fun. I wanted to make it a bit of a family affair for such a big event for myself. And then, yeah, an hour of stand up and filming it. And hopefully it gets out to the right people and you never know what happens next.
So you alluded to it before, but you work for BetMGM.
Yeah.
So kind of similar work to what Nick and I do. So explain to us how that opportunity came about and what kind of led you to doing that.
Sure. Yeah. I just applied for a job on LinkedIn. That's how I got the job.
There you
Applied,
go.
reached out,
That works.
sent the message, literally, dude, sent the message to who was when I got hired, was my boss at the time. And I just said to him, like, hey, Zach, like, I applied for this job. Thank you for your time, blah, 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 blah. 3 interviews later, got the job and started helping run the Twitter and Instagram accounts, but not doing anything as far as on-air stuff. And then like 2 months into my job, like into having that job, we signed a contract with Jalen Rose to be an ambassador for us. And I love Jalen Rose. I have a lot of respect for him because I think he's a really good media personality. And, you know, I loved like the Fab Five doc on ESPN. That 30 for 30 is awesome. And they were like, hey, can you step in? We lost our on-air talent for this. Can you step in and host? Or they asked my boss, do you have somebody who could step in and host? And I volunteered myself, just thinking like, who knows what this could turn into. And I went up there. It was in Connecticut because he is working for ESPN. So like just across the way there. And we shot this like 2-hour shoot in the studio. And after that, like that's when they were like, okay, we are underutilizing John's talent. Like, yeah, he could tweet, he's fine, he's funny, like he does all that stuff, but like putting him on camera is where we're gonna like that's the win. So that's when my job kind of started to transition. And by like a year later, so around now, they like a couple months earlier this year, they started transitioning me more into that on-air space. And yeah, it's been awesome, man. Like, I mean, like I said, getting to be a personality in sports has been really cool. Like there are times when I'm walking around the street in Hoboken and I get, you know, oh, you're the guy from the circle. But a lot of times, more than people realize, I do get like, oh, you're the guy from BetMGM, which is pretty crazy because that is almost more gratifying to me because like I worked my way into that role a little more. Not that I didn't work to get on a TV show, but to be recognizable for a couple of different things has been really cool. And who knows where it goes from here, because like you said, sports gambling is an industry where like a lot of people, especially around like our age in like their 20s and 30s, are like really budding in that space. You know, a lot of people are getting jobs in that space, and like it's young. It's one of the few industries really making money right now. And you know, once it gets to 50 states, if it ever does, like who knows what the personalities and things like that are going to look like? Who knows like what the next job is? Who knows what camera I'm standing in front of next? But for where I'm at now, I mean, to be 25 and being like a recognizable sports media personality as well as comedian is like, I got a pretty good deal going on. And like, who knows what the next 10 years will hold, but like for the first 25, I think I've done a pretty good job for myself.
Absolutely. So certainly full circle, that's for sure. Now I got to ask you, we touched on it a little earlier. You said you wanted to know. So I got to ask you, what was your, right moment, either in your life or your career? So what we mean by that is a time or place where you wanted to pursue something, you asked somebody for advice, they said, John, do not do that. That's horrible.
Oh, yeah.
It's not going to work out. And you're like, you know what? I'm going to do it anyway. And ultimately you will see why it is that I'm right.
I got it. I got it off the top of my head right away because I've told this story many times. And
that's a first. Nobody ever has it ready to go like that.
Oh, dude, I'm ready to rock. I was in college. I was a senior in college, and a girl that I graduated with, quintessential, just a person who always thought they were pompous, better, arrogant than everybody else. You know what I mean? We had our capstone class together senior year, and it was a Monday, Wednesday, Friday capstone class. And that Monday she came into class and she was talking about how she just went down to New York City and performed and did stand up in New York City. And I, you know, didn't really know her very well. And I walked up to her and I was like, hey, like, I really like stand up. I think it's really cool. How did you get into that? Like, do you have any advice for somebody who's trying to, you know, that might be something I want to look into? And she looked at me right there and she said, I don't think you're funny enough to do it. That was it. Her exact response was, I don't think you're funny enough to do it. And I was like, you guys, I assume you both know, like, natural competitive nature. You're like, fuck you. Like, I'm going to go do it. Like, I'm going to go jump in and I'm going to get in line. I'm going to do my work. And like, I'll see you in a couple of years. And now a couple of years later, I've been on a TV show. I do stand up all over the country. And I have never heard of her at another New York City open mic, another New York City show, anything like that. So that was my moment of like, you're going to tell me I can't do this? I can do this. Like, you know, I'm right. I could do this. So that's definitely my moment of clarity there for sure.
Look at me now. Well, obviously, I'm going to post this on social media. So send me her Twitter and Instagram. We'll tag her.
Yeah, tag her for sure.
That's excellent. Yeah, so we got into the conversation before about your birthday very briefly, right?
Yeah.
And we don't want to spoil anything. But Nick, for the last couple podcast episodes, he loves when I ask this, can't get enough of it. So I have to ask, right? So I this is kind of cheating because I know already, right? But for all intents and purposes, what is your zodiac sign? And do you know the characteristics of your zodiac sign? Even though I know already.
Okay. My zodiac sign is a Capricorn. I have no idea what the characteristics of that are. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I think like the stars and stuff, I'm kind of touch and go about it because I don't like to rely my opinions of myself on what seems to be a generality, but I also think like it's super valuable to know at the same time. So do you know what are the characteristics of being a Capricorn? Because I have no idea.
Absolutely. So first things first, there are four elements, right? Fire, earth, air, water, right? So Capricorn's an earth sign. So earth sign's obviously very grounded. It's a cardinal sign. So think of it in terms of seasons, right? So you have cardinal signs, fixed signs, mutable signs, right? So cardinal signs are usually very initiative oriented, right? Typical, very go-getters. Capricorns, of all the signs, mostly incredibly professional, right? Very career-oriented people, very business-like, right? Always looking to achieve like the pinnacle of their career, right? So very, very business first signs, right? So I'm trying to think what else. Not so much stubborn, I would say, but of all the signs, I think they're the most rigid of the earth signs, right? So I don't know if that necessarily describes you, but
The stubborn part kind of does. For sure.
yes. And so that'll do it. John, we thank you for your time. We really appreciate it. Can't wait to get this up. Can't wait to see you again in person in the future. And what we do here is we always give our guests the last word. So if there's anything else you would like to share or promote, by all means, go ahead. But thanks again for doing this with us.
No, thank you guys. This has been a whole hell of a lot of fun. I love it. It's been great. An awesome interview. And I just want to say thanks because anytime I get to do something like this, like I thoroughly enjoy it. And it's cool to get to meet people like this. To keep an eye out for me on Instagram @ John Franklin __. I wish I had a more original name, but I don't. On TikTok @John Franklin Comedy. Please go follow me there because that's like kind of the big springboard for anybody who's doing comedy right now. And go check out my website, johnfranklincomedy.com. You go there, you see all my shows, especially the January 7th show, which I'm super stoked about. So if you guys are in the New Jersey area, around the New Jersey area, Asbury Park, January 7th, 7 p.m., tickets are on sale now. You go find those at houseofindependence.com or at johnfranklincomedy.com. And that's really it. We're hoping to get some stuff off the ground in the near future, looking to get a podcast going like these guys. But Joe and Nick, I really appreciate your time because this has been super fun. And yeah, thank you so much. And I can't wait to get to listen to this back and see how I actually sounded. So you guys rock. I appreciate y'all.
All right, well said, John. We appreciate your time. This has been a blast. Everybody go check out John on his comedy tour. It'll be a lot of fun, lots of laughs. So that's going to do it here for this episode of You Know I'm Right. For our very special guest, John Franklin. For my co-host, Joe Calabrese, I'm Nick Durst, and this has been You Know I'm Right.